Good evening, parents and young men who are listening to this podcast. Thank you for your attention. I want to let you know that I'm Dr. Mark Schillinger, founder of the Young Men's Ultimate Weekend and the YMUW, to help young men discover who they are, what they really value, what they need to be successful in life, and they get to learn teamwork and leadership skills. There's a lot of activities that go on there, including sports and even yoga, drumming, obstacle courses, community service. Lots of eating. I know we have to feed those guys. If we don't feed them, they're not going to do anything we ask. We have lots of ceremonies. We have an opening night ceremony on Friday night where we all get a sense to share a sense of humbleness, the awesomeness of the universe. We also have a very powerful ceremony that the young men may talk about tonight called Letting Go of the Boy, where they get a chance to grieve out all their past pains and hurts and disappointments. We have an event called the Chapel, which is a non-religious event where we call it the Chapel because that's where young men get a chance to really talk soulfully about what's going on for them in their life without any fear of rejection or being made wrong by our mentors. Sometimes we have sweat lodges. The weekend ends when the young men and their parents are participating in a really beautiful reuniting ceremony where they each vow to treat each other with more respect. So it's quite a dynamic weekend, and you're going to be listening to 6 young men who have attended over the last number of years. I'm going to introduce you to them in 1 minute, but I just want to let you know how much my volunteers, my mentors, and I love and care for these young men, not just these 6 on the call, but the over 2,000 young men who've attended our weekend. I want you parents to know, and even the young men, if you're listening, how proud we are of these 6 guys who are on the call and all the other young men, because the YMUW is a really difficult ordeal. It is a lot of fun, but it's really challenging emotionally and physically. And certainly these guys on the call graduated, and just about every young man who attends makes it through, and it's beautiful. I know, with the exception of one of the young men on this call, I know all of them really well, and one of them a little bit. I've spent a lot of time with these guys, and believe me when I say that these are the young men the world is waiting for. These guys really are starting to get their life together in a beautiful way, and yet they're all different as can be, and yet they're practicing becoming more respectful and responsible and resourceful. I want you parents and young men listening to know that these young guys come from a variety of families. Somewhere the parents were totally present in their lives, and somewhere one or both of the parents were not present or not supportive. These are all different kinds of young men you're about to listen to. So let's begin meeting these young men. Ivan, will begin with you. I'm just going to ask you to say your name and then, what are you doing now? Are you in school? Do you work? Why don't we begin with you, Ivan? What's up?
Hello, I am Ivan Grajansky, and currently I am taking a pre-calculus course over the summer, but I'm a high schooler.
You're in high school. What grade are you in?
Going into junior year.
Beautiful. Nick, how about saying hello?
Nick Bowden. I am 32 years old. I have a son who is 7 and a daughter who is 6, and I am a security and fire life safety consultant.
Beautiful. Thank you. Matthew?
Hi, I am not in school. I'm getting ready to start school, but as of now, I'm just moving into a new house.
What grade did you just finish? I know you just finished school this year. What grade are you in?
Going to be in college.
Freshman. How old are you? 18. Ben, you want to say hello?
I'm Ben Tafka. I'm 20 years old. I'm going to be a junior in college. I'm going to be studying abroad in Germany next year.
Great. Ben, thank you. John?
I'm John Watson, 22. Presently, I'm pretty regularly as a martial arts instructor, and I'm getting myself set to go back to school in the fall.
School meaning high school, college?
College.
Beautiful. And Gabe?
My name is Gabe Schillinger. I'm 30 years old, a music producer and engineer, have a recording studio, help run a music conference, among a few other things, going to school, being a personal trainer.
Cool. And then I want to have the people listening get a sense as to how many of you guys, or how many times you guys have attended the Young Men's Ultimate Weekend, and also if you have served on production. So Ivan, if you wouldn't mind beginning with how many times you've attended YMUW and if you've ever served on production.
I have gone to YMUW since 2009 for 8 consecutive times, twice as a young man and 6 times as a production member.
Beautiful. And for you people listening, what it means to be a production member means that, like what Ivan is saying, that he's attended as a young man to be a graduate, a couple of times, but a production man means that he serves as a volunteer with the adult men. And I want to let you parents and young men know who are listening that when young men who are like ages 14 or 15 or 16 or even 20 show up at a YMUW and they see other young men like Ivan and these guys who are on the call serving with the men, it's very powerful. It's really powerful. And I know the changes that these guys have gotten in their life that's improved by being with the men. It's very powerful. So thank you for serving on production. That's been great, Ivan. How about for you, Nick?
I was on one as a young man, and I've served about 10 productions.
Beautiful. And just so you listeners know, Nick and my son Gabe, who's on the call, they were at the first Young Men's Ultimate Weekend where we had 205 young men, about 50 volunteers. And man, what a movie that was. A lot of testosterone. It was beautiful, and we've all survived. So good job for making it, Nick, all the way to 32. Matthew, for you, as far as how many times you attended YMUW and served on production?
I've attended as a young man for 3 weekends, and I have served in production 1 time, but I will be doing my second time this summer.
Beautiful. Thank you for helping us out. Ben?
I've been on 1 YMUW before as a participant, and this will be my first time on production.
Cool. Awesome. Mr. Watson?
I've been a participant twice, and I've served, I believe, 6 times as a production man.
Cool. Very cool. Gabe?
I attended 1 and served on production, I believe, 3 times.
Fantastic. Couple of questions that I think people would like to hear you answer. I would say the first question I've got for you is, before you attended the weekend, before you attended as a participant, when I guess you were all teenagers at that point, what were you thinking about as far as growing up? Was it scary for you? Did you even think about it? What was your relationship to yourself in regards to becoming a young man? Was that anything you had ever thought about before attending the YMUW? And we'll go in order here. So, Ivan, is there anything that comes up to you about that?
For me, I think it terrifying having to pay bills, or, well, I was thinking it would either be a lot more work than school or a lot less. Not really sure.
So when you say paying bills, meaning like becoming a man and having to be responsible for yourself financially?
Yeah.
Cool. How about for you, Nick?
At 19, it was like a fork in the road, but there was 20 forks. Before the weekend, it was just difficult. Everything, making a decision. I was very indecisive. I didn't have real great self-esteem, actually. I put out a great ego on the front, but on the back end, I didn't know who I was, what I wanted to be. And when I got out after everything.
They got out, meaning like after your weekend?
Yes, sir. Not out of prison, out of my weekend.
Cool. And we'll come back to that, what you learned. But that's cool. How about for you, Matthew? What did you think about as far as what was going to be like being an adult or a young man or something? Was that anything you ever considered?
For me, growing up, I was terrified that I was going to, like my parents, both barely squeaked by high school, and moms didn't ever finish college. Dad kept getting in trouble. So I was not looking forward to growing up. With my history, I thought it was easily going to be for me the same outcome as my parents, but proved them wrong so far.
That's right. Good job, dude. Really proud of you. Ben, anything that was freaky for you before you went to YMUW, or just the thing that you thought about in general about growing up?
Before I went to YMUW, I thought that becoming a man and being a man was about me, being a man just by myself. But what I learned from the YMUW is that becoming a man and developing into a full-grown man means interacting and being in relationship with other young men, which I hadn't really thought of before. Most of the weekends I'd done before were really centered around me personally. And that's what I loved a lot about YMUW, is I was surrounded by so many other people that I was just not the center anymore. And that opened me up to realizing that manhood had to do with people. I don't know.
Oh, I totally get that. I follow that. That you got that it wasn't all about you. John, for you, before the weekend, anything that you would think about manhood or difficulties that you might be facing?
I remember being very afraid to make any decisions, afraid of moving forward, because I had this belief that at almost a paranoid level that the world would somehow trick me into doing something that would just be slave labor for the rest of my life and never get to be happy. I was defiant toward the idea of having to do what anyone told me or having to take any kind of responsibility for my actions. That was my experience previous to the weekend.
Thank you. Gabe?
I think for me, I think I've heard it from us a few times. I was definitely scared, and I was scared about making the wrong decisions and going the wrong direction. And then also feeling like there was something wrong with me or I was cursed in some kind of way. And I think a part of what I got out of it was realizing in a good way that maybe I wasn't so special and while figuring it out. So that was where I was at.
And before we get into all the juicy stuff about what you did get from the weekend, just one more question that I'm asking you to go dig deep inside and be more soulful about this. But when you all were at the weekend itself, part of the weekend, the agenda is to put you up against your blocks and things that are challenging for you. Was there any one thing in particular or some things that you knew were hard to accept about yourself or that you learned about yourself at the weekend or that was hard to look at? That you had to really accept because you were there and we was challenging you in a way to look at that? Ivan, was there anything that about that was true for you?
I had never realized I could lead. I was always a follower, but during the weekend, I would put in a position of leadership for a little bit and realize that as a leader, it didn't all have to fall on myself, but I could look for others, which made leadership a lot easier.
So then the hard thing was that you considered yourself a follower until you learned how to lead. Cool. How about for you, Nick? Was there anything difficult when you were at that first weekend? I know you're an old guy now.
Get the wheels cranking, but it would definitely be the opposite. I was definitely an over manager, an over leader. I led everybody in my group of friends or around the things that I did beforehand because I didn't trust anybody. So it was just easier telling everybody what to do in any situation, the good ideas and the bad ones I had as a teenager. So definitely not trusting anybody, what anybody said, anybody else's opinion. If it didn't jive with what my brain thought of, it wasn't happening. And obviously that got me into a lot of trouble as a younger guy.
I realized while I was there that I had problems with working together with people and getting to know new people. I always kept to myself, was quiet, give out my own opinions on things or put my 110% in and trying to help everybody. I just did little bits here and there. And that was a big thing, especially growing up. Not getting to know new people, not being willing to take advice from people, even try to help out was a big problem for me. Especially when I got to the weekend when it was like you really had to use your own voice and help out people and get to know your entire team so that you could work together efficiently.
Thank you. Ben, anything that was difficult about yourself at the weekend that you learned or had to come up against?
Yeah, absolutely. The weekend was really uncomfortable for me, which I'm really glad it was because I think I learned a lot. I guess the number one thing there is because people weren't paying attention to me, I looked at that resentment. Like I was resentful because of that, because I realized from that weekend, because there were kids, young men from different socioeconomic standpoints than me and just different young men entirely, I realized that there were different levels of pain and suffering. And then it became not about me and that opened my eye. That was painful to see.
I also encountered that I would see my team going in a direction that I would not agree with and that I would disengage myself. I would stop being involved with whatever they were doing just because I didn't think it was the right way to go. And so I remember one of my mentors on the first weekend during a music element pulled me aside and said, "You're going to live and die by your team and vice versa. And if you don't get in the game right now, even if you think that they've got their heads screwed on backward, none of you are going to succeed." Though I didn't trust him or jump onto the bandwagon immediately, I certainly had that illustrated for me a number of times.
Gabe, anything that was difficult to accept about yourself or look at about yourself before we get
Yeah, I
to
think for me, it was just feeling anxious about interacting with people in all different kinds of ways. And my reaction to that was really to shut down and not talk, not interact. And so for me, it was coming up against that and being a little bit more comfortable in myself and allowing myself to come out and actually interact and talk and do that kind of stuff.
One of the reasons why I'm having your parents and young men listen to these young men talk about what was difficult is because at the Young Men's Ultimate Weekend, we don't really sugarcoat a whole lot of things for the young men. We let the young men know that the only difference between the volunteers, the adult men, and the young men is that we're older and we've made more mistakes, and that we all discover at the YMUW that men experience their mistakes very similarly. They tend to shut down, they get angry, they get frustrated. And so that alone is really healthy for the young men to see. And I'm hoping that for you, certainly you young men that are listening, you get that you're not alone, that we all tend to suffer similarly. What I want to do now is bring a little bit more joy into the call here. I'm going to ask you all back in the order that we've been in. Now that you've all graduated from the weekend, either as participants or volunteers, which you've all done both, Ben, I know you'll be serving coming up this summer, but now that you're YMUW graduates, what would you say has been the best benefit or the best benefits that the weekend has helped you, either dealing with those difficult issues that you just mentioned, or just how has it helped you, whether it's school or with your girlfriends, with work, with family, whatever it may be? How has it helped you? And Ivan, why don't we begin with you?
As I said, I learned to become a leader, and although I am not an overwhelming leader, nor am I an amazing one, I can take the reins if I need to, and that's what I feel YMUW has given me most. Also, YMUW has given me reliability because you are given requirements to follow, and if you don't follow them, you have to take consequence for what you haven't accomplished.
So for those of you people listening, what I've been saying is that the YMUW, we have consequences, and consequences are not punishments. We call a consequence an activity of integrity. So if a young man's on a team that commit to being at dinner at 6 p.m. and they arrive at 6:05 p.m., the consequence may be that they don't eat, or that they have to clean the dishes, or they have to do something, it may be something silly, something physical. But the whole purpose of the consequence is for everybody to get that. Once they clean it up, once they've done something and they're back in integrity with the rest of the team or the rest of the organization, that's it. We never bring it up again. That we've cleaned it up, and like young men and men, we have to keep going and moving in the right direction. So that's what we're talking about when we say a consequence. For Nick, how would you say after the weekend, you learned some things? I know you've done a lot of amazing things since the weekends in your productions. How has it helped you?
In what way hasn't the respect I got for others in trusting them? I had a couple core relationships with young men before that were really tight, but that were in a place to where we were either going to keep guiding each other in a good direction or we were going to go back down too. And this really gave us an opportunity to hold each other, to have something to hold each other to, using what's right and talking to each other on a daily basis on that. Even within myself, within 3 weeks, I had a new job with double the pay just because of the self-respect I got. Because of that weekend, that I was worth more than I thought I was. A lot more. That I was a lot more powerful than I thought I was.
How about, as far as I know, you've had a job for years and you have a family. How would you say it helped you in terms of just working with other people and being with other people?
I can work with anybody. On a rare occasion where I actually have to tell someone else that their personality needs to change in order to conform for me. That rarely ever happens because I can literally accept people for who they are, no matter what.
Beautiful. One of the things that Nick's referring to when he said he does things right, for you parents and young men listening, we use a personal growth method at the weekend called the Right Way, which stands for 5 virtues: respect, intelligence, gallantry, humor, and true. And so I'm going to be putting some words in Nick's mouth. So what I'm hearing you say, Nick, is that when you showed up at the weekend, you were like the guy in the center of the world, the center of the circle. And now you've learned not only to respect yourself, but you can respect others. You don't have to try to manipulate or change them. Is that about right?
Exactly.
Beautiful. How about for you, Matthew? What would you say you've learned or gotten? What are the benefits since you've graduated your YMUW?
Since I've graduated, I've come out of my shell. A lot more social with people. I get along with people a lot better. I help out people if I see someone else that was in the same situation that I was, someone that's secluded, keeps to themselves, and talk to anybody. I go out of my way to go up to them and be friendly and try to be friends with them, try to help them get out of their shell and so they could see the world in a different way, like the way I do. Also, from the weekend, it's helped me get a sense of community and know that all the adults out there aren't there to get us, to put all the young men down and make them feel like they're not really helping out and doing stuff. And I can go and have conversations with the older men at the weekend, older men that I've seen at my school who have come by and have done things I've done. And I can sit down and talk with them and relate to them and have an actual good conversation with someone that I didn't know before. And just because of this weekend, it's really helped me get out of my shell and stuff.
Awesome. Beautiful. Ben?
I've learned to put the team on the pedestal instead of myself. In the way I see that is that obviously before the weekend, my life was all about how can I give the gift to me. But the greatest gift that I ever gave to myself was giving all of myself to the team. The YMUW puts all the young men in that situation that if we don't give all of ourselves to the team, then we suffer for it. And then on top of that, I learned that principles before personalities. How can each individual their principles benefit a team versus the superficial?
Beautiful. And again, for you listeners, this right way method basically encourages the young men to ponder two basic questions on these 5 virtues. How can I respect myself more? How can I respect others? How can I be more intelligent within myself? How can I be more intelligent with others? How can I be more gallant to myself and to others? How can I bring more humor to myself and others? And how can I be true to myself and to others? So we're always emphasizing those 2 things to the young men. We want them to develop who they are, their own personal values, but also to get that you have to give to the team or that you have social responsibilities to your family and community. John, what would you say you've learned since you've done your weekend?
I've learned to know that I am a lot more and less than I thought I was. I've learned to trust myself in situations that I wouldn't have in the past, and I've learned that my ego will lead me astray.
Gabe, what would you say after the weekend that you really learned or got, or how it's been beneficial to you?
I think for me, it was learning to not letting fear guide everything I was doing and instead lean more towards my virtues guiding what I'm doing. Like you were talking about being true to yourself. So not letting fear make a decision for me that I'm going to do something or say something, but instead, for example, being true to myself and saying what I actually think or what I know is right. So for me, it was being able to not just having anxiety or fear decide what I'm going to do, but actually take control of that and let my own virtues guide that instead.
So like confident in yourself that if you went by what your virtues are and voiced them, that was enough. You didn't have to always worry about what others thought. And how has that helped you now in the work that you do? I know you've got the recording studio and personal trainer. How would you say that translates into that kind of realm?
Probably for anything I do, but definitely for music, a lot of it's about networking, about meeting people, and feeling comfortable like I can be myself has helped for me to create relationship that I've had now for years and years where I have people I work with that I feel like a family and we're really honest with each other, we check in with each other. That is, well, I guess that's one way that I translated into my work.
Okay, cool. John, you want to jump back in with what you learned or what benefits you've got before we move on?
Yes, absolutely. Before my weekend, I considered being unpredictable to be a virtue, and so I would just do what I wanted, show up when I felt like it, take instruction or advice as I pleased. And since then, I've to really practice trusting others and learned that I can do that, that if I take care of my team, will take care of me. And so showing up, doing the work, being present.
How about fun? We definitely wanted to have fun at the weekend when we created this for young men. Anybody, will go in order, but if you don't have an answer, you can just say pass. But was there anything that was actually really fun for you at the weekend that you enjoyed in being reckless or fun or challenged in sort of an exhilarating way or just a silly way? Ivan, anything in any of your experiences at YMUW?
I really enjoyed having done the optical course, although on the optical course, you can sometimes feel like a drag because you have been woken up really early and now you're running and jumping and stuff. Afterwards, when you think about it, it's fun because you got to work with your team and get through something that perhaps before you wouldn't have realized you could have done with or without people.
How about for you, Nick?
The physical exhilaration throughout that day was incredible. You guys had packed so many different elements to it. And I remember it was definitely close to 100 degrees out there that weekend. So anytime we got to go swimming was like a blessing.
That's right. Your weekend, we had the pond. That was cool. How about for you, Matthew? Anything?
For me, it was also the obstacle course. I didn't mind getting up early in the morning and go doing that because that really got the adrenaline and the testosterone flowing in the morning, which really woke me up, getting in the group. And then just everybody's just saying, okay, go to the obstacle course. It was fun. Doing the obstacle course, you really got to work with your team. These obstacles aren't just like single person things. The production crew and everybody that runs it, they make sure that the team effort, everybody has to do it. And you really have to help each other out because
the one person's not helping, you won't be able to get past an obstacle and it won't be done and it cannot be fun. But the obstacle course for me was definitely my favorite thing there.
Cool. Ben?
That thing was the coolest thing ever. The only other time I've ever experienced something like that was in hot yoga classes, and it doesn't even compare. Like, the sweat lodge was just natural, and it was great. I don't know how else to explain it.
Cool. So it was like exhilarating for you? Is that what you mean? Like it's really
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I just love that part of the weekend for some reason. It was cool, like a level of meditation I hadn't done before.
beautiful. That's great feedback. Thank you. John, anything that you've had fun with at YMUW?
Oh, so many things. I can't tell you how many dirty jokes I've learned at the joke circles. Just the standard time killer that we use when we need to fill a little space. I love those. I've had to be boning up, as it were, for more spring this year. I remember my second weekend, we played a game called Braveheart. What had happened here was that I'd been pulled into the pond by accident by one of my team members on the obstacle course, and so I had to go change out of my clothes, out of my shoes, because my shoes were soaked, and so I did the rest of the day barefoot with another member of my team, managed between the two of us to beat all the other teams, every other person at the weekend at Braveheart, even though I had a little rock poking into my feet the whole time. Just the exhilaration coming off of that win was something I'd rarely felt before and have not often experienced then.
Cool. In 15 seconds or less, can you tell us what Braveheart is all about?
Braveheart is similar to chicken. One young man hops onto the back of the other, and then the object is to unhorse your opponent. Beautiful. To pull them off their mount.
Mano o mano, or something like that. Gabe, anything you remember that was fun for you?
Yeah, I think for me, it was long ago, but what I do remember is just generally being outside and getting dirty and running around. I definitely enjoyed, but I don't know if this is cheating because it's answering your question, but serving on production and when we brought some music elements and seeing some of the young men who are really, some are not interested on, some are just so excited to maybe having an opportunity or at least it's something they're really interested in doing. That's what I remember most from the weekend of the most fun.
Cool. What Gabe's referring to is that when Gabe serves on production, since he owns a hip-hop recording studio, he'll bring in a mixer, he'll bring in keyboards, maybe some electronic drums, and the young men get a chance in about 2 hours write a hip-hop song, sing it, produce, play the instruments, and maybe even make an album cover. So that's what Gabe is talking about. All right, we have a couple of minutes left. I just kind of want to wind down. If you guys can tell me in closing, if since the YMUW, your relationship with your parents has changed in any way, better, worse, improved, I'd love to hear from that. I know the parents would too. So Ivan, if you wouldn't mind beginning to briefly but directly answer that question about your parents and relationship improving.
For me, I have to say I have not had much improvement because my relationship with my parents has always been pretty good, although recently, probably because of growing into an adult through hormones, my relationship has weakened some, but overall it is probably better than the average young man with their parents.
Cool. Nick, anything with regards to your family? Did anything change?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely communicated stronger in the sense that there was less argument and actually more communication. They saw the difference within my own self-confidence and what I believed within myself and also my trust for others, the reciprocation of it. And with that came the communication. 12 years later, I talk pretty much every night.
Sweet. That's really sweet. Matthew, anything?
My relationship with my parents has dramatically changed the weekend. Before going to the weekend, there was arguing and disputing, and I never got along with my parents. I'm always being defiant with them and stuff. But after going to the weekend, I learned so much in there that my relationship with them is like no arguing. We get along. When we disagree about something, we sit down and we talk about it, try to find a compromise instead of just yelling at each other until one of us leaves. I've gained so much trust in both my grandma and my mom since in my weekends I've done. Now they feel comfortable with me leaving me alone with, my brother and sister babysitting, and they don't have to worry about me. If I want to go out for the evening and go hang out with my friends and anything, they completely trust me. Because of that, it's like our relationship is more of a family. We're more of a family now than we were before I went to the weekends.
Cool.
The weekends, I think I learned that I am my parents and my family's legacy. that I have a responsibility to show their teachings and their spirit onto anybody who's willing to listen. And just that thought, which I learned from the weekend, made me look at them in a different way and respect them a lot more in terms of realizing that they're not at fault for their faults. They deserve to be honored. Without them, I'm nothing. So the right way really helped me out with that.
Beautiful. Thank you. That's awesome. How about for you, John?
I would say that my relationship with my parents has certainly improved. It didn't happen right away, but just piece by piece as I worked through and got a better and better grasp at what I had learned there and put more and more distance in terms of day-to-day function between myself and them, really going through the process of becoming autonomous. Our relationship is certainly better. I've had a fractious relationship with my dad all my life, and the two of us are closer now than I can remember. We may not be the best of pals, but we make a great team when the situation calls for it. And when the moment arises for us to hang out, go have dinner or catch a movie, we get on great. I know it's very much in part thanks to having the common language that we learned at the YMUW.
Thank you. Gabe?
Yeah, I think for me, I feel like I have a really good relationship with you, with mom. We both we work together every week, at least once a week. We hang out together. I think we're as close as we ever have been. And I think that with my mom, to be honest, I think a lot of that was there before the weekend. So I don't know that it was a huge dramatic shift, but it did help, at least for me, I think feeling a little bit more open and feeling like it's safe to communicate what I'm really feeling. I definitely think that's only helped.
Beautiful. I know for me as a father, having you being at the weekend, it really made my game go higher because I had a practice where we were preaching as the men. So I know that helped me tremendously. And like you say, we work together, we play together. I think having you go through the weekend for me was a big deal because it just amped up my respect for you and all the young men who did it. But I agree with you. We definitely have a great relationship. I'm thankful for that. I want to wind down now basically with one last question to all you guys, and then we'll finish this. If you could say one thing to the parents or the young men who are listening about attending the weekend or sending their sons, what would you say? What would your message be to parents or young men who are thinking about coming to this weekend? Ivan, you want to begin?
I know a lot of young men have doubts about the weekend, but you shouldn't have doubts about anything until you've actually tried it, since you shouldn't judge a book by its cover.
Beautiful. Very smart. Nick?
Everybody's your master at something, and always you'll open your eyes to it. There's not a young man on the planet that couldn't get something from this, something that they will use daily for the rest of their life.
Cool.
Just go. Honestly, it's definitely worth it. It's a fun experience. You'll have tons of fun. You'll meet new people. You'll make friends that you'll have for the rest of your lives. You'll meet tons of cool older men that could be mentors and help you out when you're in trouble and stuff. You need someone to talk to. There's a lot of wisdom and a lot of experience at this weekend, and I wouldn't be the same without it. I just hope that other young men can see that too.
Very cool. John?
I think that it's hard to underestimate the value of the weekend. It's not for nothing that young men have been dragged off into the woods and initiated since time immemorial, and carrying on that tradition is enormously valuable.
Beautiful. And thank you for reminding everybody that this is just an age of tradition, that we're not doing anything original. Gabe?
Say for the parents, why not? What's the downside? You've been listening to this much, so I'm sure all the upside. The young men get plugged into this amazing network of men and young men. They have a chance to discover things about themselves, something that chances are going to improve your relationship with your kids. So why not?
Cool. So, Nick, you being the senior young man on the call who has family and kids, any last word you would say how YMUW has helped you get this far with all that you've done or doing? Any you want to say about that?
I think that just be the thing that I actually made it this far, and it's a direct reflection, a part of the Young Men's Ultimate Weekend. I'm a pretty stubborn, and when it comes to the mistakes, because I have definitely made them in the past 10 years, but I've actually been able to use what I learned from that to make it through those mistakes and to be able to pass on my own lessons to others so that they hopefully don't have to make those same mistakes. And also as a father, like it's daily, it's every second.
Thank you, young men, for being on this call. I want to thank you all for listening. We have an expression at YMUW, which is we are the ones we've been waiting for, meaning the men, because it's our obligation to help initiate young men, and for the young men, meaning the world's not going to go well if they don't step up and get it right. And I want to let you know that these 6 young men on the call, I've watched them all grow. definitely you should be considering sending your sons. If you're a parent, if you're a young man, you should be jumping out of your seat going, Mommy, Daddy, get me over to this event. So we hope to see you. If you want more information about us, you can contact us at info@ymuw.org. You can call our 800 number, which is 800-719-9302. If you want to speak to me directly, Dr. Mark Schillinger, you can email me at mark@markschillinger.com, marksvhillinger.com, or directly at 415-827-0959. And thank you for listening.